All right. Here we are. Okay. Welcome to the show, everyone. So, as you'll see, I am solo today. Bill's at a conference, giving talks and stuff. So, I'll be taking over the show for the day. And just as a disclaimer, it's my first time essentially doing this solo. So, we're gonna start with something sort of basic, but I think it'll be interesting. And for those of you that are new here, normally on the show we're working on a real time chat app, and we essentially did a lot of things there where we added over time. We added Tailscale. We were messaging over TCP WebSockets. We added encryption, and it was a super interesting project that kind of snowballed into a pretty decent sort of app in the terminal. But last episode of You Were Here, we talked about sort of AI agents, and Bill was basically adding to this. Uh, let's switch here. And Bill was basically working on his AI training repo, which, if you guys haven't seen it already, definitely make sure to give it a try. And you could definitely learn from it. So let's go to the code here. We were essentially going over how to build an agent and going through that process, and basically using the GPT OSS model to call certain tools within the agent that can do pretty cool things. And we kind of worked on it a bit off camera, and now the tools actually do some pretty cool stuff. Where if we go to the functions here, let's go to step 5. Um, we have a tool that can search through files. There's a tool that can read those files, and then there's even a code editing. We could create a file, and oops, there's even a Go code editor, which is pretty cool. So for today's focus, I think it would be cool to just sort of start off by going through this example 11, which you guys haven't seen on the show yet, and just go through the steps. And this is basically where Bill introduced MCP kind of client and server interactions. And the whole goal was to put those tools within the MCP um, call. And it's something that I'm still learning as well. So I'm gonna be learning at the same time as you guys as we go through this. And I want to essentially just step through the code and kind of see if I can get an idea how this works. And I think for that we'll start on step 1. Um, and just from my knowledge of MCP, how I think about it is basically like a toolbox, and then you have a bunch of things within the toolbox. So, like, because at a high level, all it is basically expanding the context and the data that your LLM has access to. So you could do a lot of things with it. I mean, the possibilities are endless. There's a lot of them out there. Um, that you can play with, and even Cursor, which I'm on now, you can add MCP to it to do all kinds of things. Um, so let's get started looking at the code. So I see here we have a host and a port to listen on, and then this is very uh, Bill sort of setup where we have the main function and then we have a run function within. Um, no panic here, a fatal, okay. So it starts by starting an MCP server and listening for requests. Okay. So we're starting an MCP listen and serve within a Go routine. Okay. And then testing MCP client coded against the MCP server. Okay. So Let me actually, I skipped a little bit here. Let me read the comment here. It shows how to create a basic MCP interaction where the server runs the service. Raw curl calls. Okay, cool. Okay, so now getting into the run function, it takes a host and a port. We're doing that. Testing MCP client coded against the MCP server. Okay, so 3 MCP based tool calls. So here we're making client calls to the 3 tools. If it's too small, I can make it bigger for you guys. Let me know if that helps or if it kind of blocks stuff off for you guys. Okay. So MCP client call. Okay, so we're calling the 3 tools here, and these take a host, a port, a tool, and arguments, and they return an error. Okay, so we have the host port, the name of the tool, and then we have a map string any's. Okay, and then we have a filter. Okay, so it seems like it's just some like hard-coded values here. And as we go through this, my goal with this is by the end of the show today is just to kind of add a tool to do something sort of fun, just to so I can go through the process with you guys. And I think that's something that's super powerful is you can just add your tools to this, and it's kind of like endless, as you can pretty much go with however creative you want to be is how you could go with this. Okay, so we have the 3 tool calls here, and okay, the test successful, hold the server open for extended testing. Okay, and then we have the channel here waiting for the control C. Okay, cool. So here we're getting into the basic server implementation. All right, file operations. Here we're sort of creating the new server. Okay, which takes a name and a version. Cool. Okay, makes sense. And then here we're adding the tools to the server. Okay, awesome. Name tool this file, description. Okay, we have a name and a description for it, basically saying what the tool will do. Okay, and then we also have the tool handler. Okay, interesting. Okay. We have the address, which combines the host and the port. Print. Here we have a function, which takes a request, returns a server, URL path. Okay, and then we have a switch case, which basically changes depending on the endpoint we're going to use. So the tools are set up as endpoints. Okay, and then if it tries to hit something that doesn't exist, that it's an unknown tool. Okay. And then we have the handler, which is an SSE handler. Okay. And as I'm going through this too, this is using the Go SDK MCP, which I believe I have here. I did not. But if you guys wanted to check that out, here we go. If you guys wanted to check that out, sort of there, and there's some documentation and things like that you can go through, but it kind of explains a lot of the code that we're going to be seeing. You can kind of see some examples of that and just get an idea for the flow too. Okay, so now we get to our first tool, the list files. Okay, so we have a struct type, list file params, which has a filter, and then the JSON schema, a possible filter to use. Okay, interesting. List file handler. This takes a context, a server session, and this signature I know is sort of required by the MCP package. It's sort of like the standard. Okay. And it's returning a call to a result. Okay, and then error. Okay. And then here we're constructing the data, status, filter, files, and then we're just sort of hard coding. Okay, and then it's just sort of hard coding some things here to return. So this is basically to test if we're actually registering the tool and if it's hitting it. One by one, we're marshalling that data, calling to a result. And then we're doing the same sort of thing for read files. Okay, and then we're returning that text. Okay, and then, okay, there's also a shell command one. We have a message here, that's fine. And then this is the client side of that. Okay. So we have the client call, which we're essentially doing up here. Okay, yeah, nice. We're doing that there. Context, we have the address, and this is adding the tool to the end of that. It's adding the tool for the endpoint. And we have the new client there, and then we're also creating the transport, which looks like what we just saw there on the MCP, Go MCP repo. Okay, the client transport, connecting to the MCP server, and then client.connect. Connect begins an MCP session by connecting to the server over the given transport. Okay. And then session, awesome. Call the tool, okay. And display the result, okay. Response, so with a given name and arguments, interesting. Is it still too small for you guys, or is it a good size now? I can zoom in more, I'm just not sure if it's going to cut some things off. Okay, so here, we can make it a little bit larger. There we go. Okay. Check for errors, display the result, ranging through the content. Okay, awesome. Okay, cool. So let's sort of try and add like the very basic version of our tool here. I want to, so I had this idea that it's super basic, but I think it'll be kind of a fun way to do this, is I wanted to use this like joke API and basically just have a tool, since I notice here we don't really have tools that make like an external API call. I wanted to do that and just sort of to add to it. The LLM can come up with a joke on its own. But it was just a way for me to kind of hack on something and just try out the process. So starting at the top, my first thing would be to probably add this client call, and we'll do, let's just copy one of these. And we'll do tool underscore generator. We'll call it that. And then here we do a category. We'll do a category and we'll call it programming. So we don't need any of this. It is a little bit large for me here on my end. So we'll do this. Oh. We'll do a category. We'll call it programming. Sure. programming, which it wants it this way. We're not going to make the actual call. That would be our first thing. And then as we go down, yeah, so we're using the Go SDK, which I pulled up here. We're using the MCP Go SDK for this. And I'm just going through and basically reviewing some code that Bill did and seeing what I can sort of add to it and play with. So, never client call. Okay, cool. Now we can add the tool. So we'll do sort of this and beautiful cursor helping out there. We have the add tool to a joke generator, and you guys are going to see me using cursor a little bit. I do like using the tab feature a lot. It is super helpful, especially since I'm a little bit more new to the syntax here in writing Go code. So it kind of helps out when I get some things confused with other languages. Okay, so joke generator, MCP handler. So we have to add that. Okay. So we're gonna have to do something like this. So we'll copy this, but I don't want to have to be scrolling too far. We'll add it to the bottom. It's fine. So we'll add it to the bottom. Okay, so we'll do some, it's probably gonna come in and, yep. So we'll do joke generator. And even though it's giving me the solution basically here, you're also gonna see me sort of type this out myself because I want the practice. Category. We'll do a joke. What was it? Possible here. So we'll just call it possible category to use for the joke. Okay, sure. Do list files MCP handler joke. Oops. Generator. Let's export it. Okay. Joke generator. MCP server session. Call to any. Okay. Status filter files. We don't have this, so we'll just keep it to status and we'll add category. String. Category. Okay, awesome. And then we don't need this. Category. Where's that arguments dot category? Yeah, we could do let's go back here. Couple steps. Params and arguments filter. Huh. What is going wrong here? Description generates a joke. So doing the category, but why this file? Oh, this file params. Hold on, there we go. Joke generator params. Okay, and then we have here. We'll add a joke. Why not? And we'll say this is a joke. Okay, cool. Oh, and I did not add the tool here. I missed a step there. there's cursor coming in clutch with the tab, and that's one thing I really love that about sort of all this like the AI IDEs and stuff is and one thing about cursor mainly is how it kind of like tabs you through your file, and it can kind of catch things like that maybe you missed, um, kind of skimming through things, and it'll just take you where you need to go. Especially in like newer projects, that you're not really like too familiar with it, or you're looking at it for the first time. It can kind of help sometimes. A lot of the times it gets in the way, but it can kind of help sometimes, and just moving you to the right spot. Okay, so we have that there, and then this is client call. So we should be able to sort of run this and just get a hard-coded sort of answer here. We should see this as a joke. We're not doing the API call yet. So let's try it. I believe if you go in the make file, you can run all of these examples that I'm looking at here today. We're working in these two. We're working at example 11 step 1 and step 2. So let's run step 1. Let me just bring up the terminal here. So I have a clean thing. And the first thing you have to run is make a llama dash up. That just kind of starts that up. And let's see what we get here, and then make example 11 step 1. Let's see. Okay, so let's just see what these logs look like connected to the MCP server. There's localhost 8080 handling the first request, which was that first sort of tool call. Yeah, that first client call. Calling tool, boom, success. There was that hard-coded value we saw, handling request, tool, show command, tool. Okay. And then server handling request for URL tool joke generator. Okay, there it is. Calling the tool joke generator with a category of programming, status success, category of programming joke. This is a joke. Awesome. And test successful. Okay, cool. So we have a very basic tool added. Let's just clean that up. Okay, I'm not sure if I needed to run a llama there. I'm just used to doing that for this project for the earlier steps. Okay, so I guess let's go into step 2 and see what was done here. Start in the main. This example shows you how to use the program. From examples, example 10, step 4, main.go, and move the tooling to an MCP service that is called by the tooling. Move the tooling to an MCP service. Okay. Let's get a little further into this. Okay, so the URL, that changed up a little bit. Here's our model. We're using the GPT OSS model. I did run this in the in between the previous show and today, with step 4 and 5, and it does run on my computer, but I think I'm kind of at the limits of my RAM, so I'm not sure how it's gonna do with all of the live streaming software and stuff on top of it. But the results with this are really good. We were previously using Quen, and it seemed to get into a death loop, sort of, and not recognize that the tool already came back with an answer. If you want to see more of that, I think you can go back to the last show and we show that. Okay, so we have context window here. Context window represents the maximum number of tokens that can be sent and received by the model. The default for Olama is 8K, and the makefile has been increased to 64K. Okay, interesting. by the model. Okay, I think previously, if you look in the last show, we were using like a way bigger number than this, and I think that's kind of what may have been causing some of our like hallucination issues there. Okay, so this is just basically getting the context window. It's doing some stuff there. I won't be messing with this too much. And then we have our main function that calls a run. Okay. All right, runs the MCP server locally. And this could be replaced with an MCP server that is running in a different process. Okay, cool. So MCP serve declare a function that can accept user input. Okay, so in this one we're accepting user input, using standard in and out. Okay. We're getting a user message. Cool. So we'll be able to actually chat here with the model. Construct a logger client to talk to the model and the agent. Then start the agent. And this looks familiar from the previous examples. Yeah, this looks familiar there. Tool describes the features which all tools must implement. Okay, so we need to have a call. It's an interface, and it has a context, a tool call, and a client document, which is a map of string any's. Okay, and client or agent represents the chat agent that can use tools to perform tasks. So we have an SSE client going on here. Okay. Get user message, tick token. We had implemented sort of like a token counter, which I'm sure we'll see when we run this in the last example. And that was pretty cool. We did like some basic math there and then actually used a real embedding model to sort of try and get like an accurate count on the amount of tokens during reasoning, input, output, and kind of like a running total for the conversation as the chat goes on. So that's pretty cool. Maybe we'll be able to see that. We have tool and then tool documents. Okay, and then new agent creates a new instance of the agent. Boom, boom, boom. Message, we have the logger. Okay, new SSE. Construct the MCP client. Okay, and constructing the tokenizer. Okay, cool. Constructing the agent. All right, so this is gonna be where we need to add our tools, our tool documents. Okay, so we're definitely gonna have to come back to that and add our joke. We'll definitely have to come back to that and add our joke. Okay, and then we have a system prompt here. I lightly played with this for the previous examples, but this is basically getting injected at like the beginning of the conversation, and just to sort of get some behavior from it, and to kind of, I see in the prompt we did like some prompting here to just kind of help with that death loop issue that was happening. And then here we have reasoning high. I think with this GPT OSS model, you can say low, medium, or high. We just put high. And then run starts the agent and run the chat loop. Okay, so here we're creating the conversation. This is maintaining history. Okay. Reasoning content per model call. Okay, so we're tracking the reasoning content. And then in tool call, this is basically to know if we're inside a tool call request or not. And then last tool call, which this is something new that was added. I think this might be to try and prevent the loop sort of issue that we were having. Okay. And we have a conversation. We're going to append that system. Okay, so we're appending that system prompt to the beginning of the conversation. Okay. We have just a message to the user there. And we have a loop. And this Yeah, okay, so that's like the main chat loop. Okay, cool. If we are not in a tool call, then we ask the user to provide their next question. Okay, so not in tool call, then we ask for a question. Okay, cool. So yeah, we break. Okay, makes sense. Conversation, user input, reset the flag. Now we make a call to the model. We could be responding to a tool call or providing a user request. Okay. And then we have some different sort of parameters here. The max tokens is what we used to have really high, and now it's under context window, which is 8K, which apparently that's llama's limit. We have the temperature, which is super low because we want it to be pretty exact. Top P and top K. I'm not too familiar with what those do, so maybe we can use a little bit of the AI tooling here. And instead of agent mode, let's just put it in ask mode, and let's ask what does top underscore P and top underscore K mean? Represent. Let's do that. We'll just give it the context there. This is one thing too I love about Cursor is just being able to selectively like copy paste and it gets those line numbers, and then I can go further on and do things like that also. Generate text by limiting the vocabulary choices. Why are these settings together? Only top 10%. Looks like it creates a very focused determining generation. Okay, cool. And like I said in the beginning, guys, I'm learning with you on this. And those of you that might already know this, I might be going a little slow, but I really want to just sort of get something out of this. Only the top 10 most likely tokens are considered. Okay. Awesome. Okay, cool. So that gives an idea. You guys can read through that while I go through this. Here we have a channel for client chat SSE. So it's creating a channel for the SSC with a buffered value of 100. Okay, and then we have a context with timeout for 5 minutes. Okay, and then we have a do call, which is doing a post. Okay, some boilerplate there. I'm gonna make a call to the model. Store the response chunks, reasoning thinking. Okay, content thinking, using content, and process the response which comes in as chunks. So we need to process and save each chunk. Okay, and I think this is looking very similar. This is looking very similar to what we did before. Agent there, boom, 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 boom. Yeah, this is very similar. I think the only thing that's changed since the last episode was the reasoning. Okay, so we'll just speed it up then a little bit there. So we have the tool calls, another conversation, compare the tool calls, call tools. Boom, boom, boom. Did we get the content? Okay, with some models, a think tag could exist to indicate reasoning. We need to filter that out and display it as a different color. Okay, so one thing we did notice with the OSS model compared to Quen is Quen would have these think tags basically as part of the content itself. And OSS, through one way or another, is sort of hiding that, and it's more through reasoning. They call it reasoning. Response choice. Yeah, here we go. Do we get reasoning content? ChatGPT models provide reasoning in the delta.reasoning field. Yeah. And here essentially it's just displaying that as, I believe this is red that it's using. And the cancel context. We process all the chunks from the response. So we need to add this to the conversation history. Here we see that being done. The content's not empty. Okay, cool. Then we have call tools. which, yep, we had that, add the conversation. We don't need to get too deep into this right now, but essentially, okay, here we are doing the token. We're doing the token count there. Low context window, 100. Interesting. Okay. And then these are sort of the values we're going to get. The total tokens of the conversation, the amount of tokens and reasoning. Current window. I'm not sure off the top of my head what current window. Total tokens is current window plus the reason tokens. Okay. Interesting. Current window. Oh, okay. So it seems like it's the total plus the reason. And that's what gives you the total tokens. And then percentage of the total, which is a context window. Okay. Conversation history. Comparing tool calls will try and detect if the model is asking us to call the same tool twice. This function is not accurate because the arguments are in a map. Need to fix that. Huh. Model, same tool twice. Arguments are in a map. I wonder if that has to do with maps having basically an undefined order when you iterate. Huh, okay, interesting. And then tool success response, tool error response. Failed data. Okay, cool. Yeah, that was all we basically went through. Okay, so the main function, it seems like the only thing we're gonna need to do here to basically add a tool to this, if I can find it, here we go, is the tool, add the tool document. So I'll just add that here. We'll do new joke generator. Beautiful. New joke generator. And now I guess let's go to functions, which should be somewhat similar. Let me just take a look at this. Read file, new read file. Yeah, it should be sort of similar to that. Maybe there's some different stuff here. Okay, so I see a client. That's different. And then here's the call, which was that interface, I believe, that we saw earlier. Let's look here. Pair tool calls. Might have passed it. Tool, yeah, here we go. Call context and tool call. Oh, I think it's different though. Context, it's a little different. Okay. Call text, cool call. Context, transport, param. Okay. This is calling tool. Transport and parameters. Okay. The cool top parameters are the name and the arguments. Okay, so each tool takes name and arguments. Okay. I'm doing call tool. Any value. Here we're connecting and then call tool. Okay. And then here is where we're defining the tools. This is where it starts to look similar to before, but it is a little different. So we're just gonna go, let's look at just this read file tool to start with. So I can kind of understand what's needed here, but it looks like for the most part, that's mostly boilerplate, except for the tool document. Okay. So we have a new read file struct type that has a name, a client, and a transport. New read file creates a new instance of the tool. How's the audio, guys? Is it a little quiet or is it sort of better now? I'm trying to lean forward here and be closer to the mic. Tool read file, okay. It could be a tiny bit louder. Let's see if I can adjust that really quick. let's see, while this software comes up, noiser. Okay, let's just try and move it a little bit closer here. There, we're a little bit closer to me now. So maybe, hopefully that helps. I can't really adjust it without breaking some other things right now. So let's do that. Okay. So here, let's get back where I was. Okay, so new read file creates a new instance of the read file tool and loads it into the provided tools map. Okay, cool. So we have a tool name here, so we'll have to do that. We have the address, which is basically the MCP host plus the tool name at the end of it to create the full endpoint. Then we have the transport, which returns a new client transport that connects to the SSE server at the provided URL. And I want to just real quick, because I feel like I'm a little fuzzy on exactly. Let's see. Briefly describe exactly what transport does in an MCP. And we'll do in an MCP, for example. Let's just see if it'll give us a clear option. I mean, this is just something I'm curious about. Undersnode creates a server sent events transport layer for the model context. Transport establishes a persistent HTTP connection with the server at this. Oh, okay, that makes sense. Bi-directional communication. Okay, cool. That's all I needed. Okay, I cleared it up. So it's just a transport layer between them, and it kind of keeps that connection. Okay. And then here we have the read file tool, which we're giving it the tool name, the client, and the transport for that address. Okay, that makes sense. And then here we have a pointer to this. We're adding to the map. Okay, cool. And then to document. Okay. And then here we have the tool document. This defines the metadata for the tool that is provided with the model. And this is something that we kind of played with in the last episode a little bit, that I thought it was one of the more interesting things about this is where you can kind of say what I guess parameters would be the right word, properties or parameters that a tool sort of works with. And then you're kind of giving it the description of what each one does. Like, for example, the read file tool is the name of the tool. We have the description, which is basically what it does, which I believe this is what the model is essentially looking at. To decide whether it's going to pick the tool or not. Or search for files containing a pattern. When searching file contents, returns line numbers where the pattern is found. Yeah, so it's just describing what it does. Read the content given file path or search for files. Okay. And then here we're basically asking for that file path, which the user in this case would be typing in, and that would get used. When searching file content, return line numbers where the pattern is found. Okay. And then here it's saying what the type would be. It's a string value. And the description is the relative path of a file in the working directory. If the pattern is provided, this can be a directory path to search in. Okay, cool. So we have that. And then this is whether it's a required parameter to call this tool or not, is what I believe that does. We'll play with this in a second when I actually do my little joke generator tool. We'll play with this and see kind of how it affects it. And then call is a function that is called. Okay, so this is the one. This is a call function that essentially implements the interface. Okay. I believe this looks like the one in the interface. Okay. This is the method. Okay, returns a response, which is a document. Okay, boom, boom. And this looks like some boilerplate, except for info. I think that might be a little bit different for us. And search files. And then we're on to the next tool, search files. Okay, cool. So you guys, if you want to, you can go through the repo, the AI training repo, and just kind of look at this. And here we have an example of like different sort of parameters the tool takes, different ways to prompt it. So we're going to kind of follow this when we do ours. We have create file tool, go code editor. Okay. So that is, it seems like this is essentially the client slash setup for all the tools. Okay. So let's get into our implementation. So we have this tool name, tool description, client version here, read file. Okay, so we're gonna do these for the beginning and just call the agent to read. Okay, we'll do that just so we don't get too far ahead. And I don't really want to be scrolling. Okay, so we'll do it down here. So read file. So cursor's gonna help me out here. Joke generator tool. Yep, awesome. Represents a tool that can be used to generate a joke. Great. This is one thing that I think all this tabbing is amazing for. It's just comments in general. Like I would have spent maybe at least 30 seconds thinking about doing these comments, but with this it's basically instant. So we have a new uppercase, new joke generator. Boom, done. New joke generator. New joke generator. It wants to help me. I'll let it help me. It creates a new instance of joke generator tool and loads it into provided tools map. Here we have the name. This is creating that endpoint. We're loading it into the map here, but this has to change because we're no longer read file. We are JG and joke generator. Yep. Joke generator. Joke generator. And joke generator. And we don't have tool document just yet. Okay, so let's do this. We'll get this one. Document, cool. This is sort of the awesome part about this too, is we could just add a bunch of tools to this if we wanted to and just really go crazy. But okay, we have to put JG in the receiver. Yep, joke generator. JG, joke generator, beautiful. Here it's gonna be joke generator.name, description, including or replacing lines. Let's see what it comes up with. Generates a joke based on a category. Okay, cool. Just quick water break. Okay, awesome. Generates a joke based on the category. Okay. Now, as we go through this, we do not need any of that. So we'll just keep one and essentially edit it. And for this, we want a category. That's the only thing we're basically expecting, but I don't want to have to specify a category. I want the user to basically just be able to say, hey, generate a joke, come up with something. But I would like it to default to basically a programming joke. So that way, like, we could ask it for a different type of joke. Um, but I don't want to necessarily make it a required thing. So we'll get down to that. So the description. So we'll just do the category joke to generate. And now here, I want it to basically default. So default to programming if not provided. Yeah, perfect. If not provided. And then here it's saying categories required. I don't know if I want it to be required though. Let's just we'll leave it there for a second and just play with that idea for a moment. And then here we have the actual call. Okay. Okay, cool. We'll do the call. Awesome. So we'll do joke generator. GG.name. GG.name. And then we'll just change all of that to GG. Okay. But here we're not gonna have a message. Yeah. So this is maybe we could do a curl call to the API. Let's see. This is where things are different. So I had sent a request. This is essentially what it looks like. So we get a category. We could have a type of joke. So it could be a single part or a two-part. We have the setup for the joke and then the delivery. Okay. And then there's some flags here, which, from what I had read earlier, we could use this safe, and I'm just always going to keep it in safe for our purposes here. I'm just going to add a safe to that query param here. Okay. So we need to do that. Okay, cool. So let's do category, type, beautiful, setup, delivery. Awesome. Okay. Very smart. Type, setup, delivery. Safe is always going to be true. So we're going to do that a different way. I'm just going to hard code that instead of having the model do some stuff there. Then we'll do delivery. So we're going to need those things, but it doesn't need to be part. I don't think it needs to be part of the tool document. We are going to get it. Unmarshal data. Okay. I know we're doing the unmarshal there. Unmarshal parses J and stores the result in the value pointed to by V. Okay, got it. That makes sense. Okay. So we'll run with that for a second. So I think this is everything done here. Essentially, read file. Yeah, there's nothing up here. Okay, so now we have our new joke generator tool document essentially added here in the main. We're defining it here along with the call. Where's it at? Down there. New joke generator tool document and call. Okay, cool. Now we go to the server. Let's see here. Quick water break. Okay. Let's see. Operations. New server. This is sort of what we saw, but this is different. Okay, hold on. This is different. Yeah, okay, so the main is handling the chat loop. This is just a server, essentially. Okay. Register read file tool. File operations. Server. We're going to do a request. URLs, request URL path. We have a switch case here with a given MCP server. Huh. Name unknown tool. Interesting. Okay. So we'll do here and then register joke generator tool. Oops. Undefined. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. So we just added that there. We have a new SSE handler. Listen and serve. Okay. And then register read file tool. Okay, so we have a register. We have the parameters. And we have a handler, and that's following sort of what I know. Okay, cool. So register read file tool. We're giving it the tool name and the tool description, and it takes a server, returns a string. Okay, we're adding the tool, which we did do that in step 1. We did the add tool here. Tool name, tool description, and the handler. Okay. And then return that. Plus the tool name. Okay, so I guess that's for the endpoint. So that's return file operations. Okay, interesting. Read file tool param struct. The JSON schema. A possible filter to use. Read file handler. JSON Marshall. So this is essentially following. Yeah, this is essentially following what we did here. Let's go here. Essentially following that. But we do have a register function now, which changes things a little bit. So let's do that. So we'll go to the bottom. So we're consistent with what we've been doing. And beautiful. Cursor giving me that, so I don't need to copy it. Tool name, tool description, joke generator, MCP handler. See what we can do here. Tool name, tool joke generator, beautiful. Tool description, generate a joke based on a category. We'll do the add tool, return this plus tool name. Okay, beautiful. Okay. Add tool, tool name, tool description, and this is joke. Oops. joke generator MCP handler. Beautiful. Okay. Represent. Yep. Comments because it's uppercase. We try to do that. I'm a big fan of comments, especially in a language I'm not completely comfortable with. I love comments and just it kind of helps me understand, especially when you have a lot of code and a lot of moving parts. It just helps you sort of get a quick idea. You could also skim the code, but comments are great. Okay, so register the call. We're adding the tool name, the parameters, but now we don't want to have these hard-coded sort of values. So let's sort of see if we can steal some code here. We're using info file path. Yeah. Okay. I like the read file tool. It's just, it seems a lot more simple to sort of look at. So if the params is not, okay, if the path is not empty, we saw before in the functions that the path is required here. Okay. Path is not empty. Directory require arguments path. It's getting set as long as it's not empty. Okay. And we're setting that. If it's empty, we're just going to keep it to that. Okay. And then we have the read file, what it's actually doing. And then at the end, we have this info struct. Interesting. Marshall. And then that sort of adding the text to the map or to the string. Okay. I think I know where to start. So okay, so let's start here. Joke. I believe here we're calling it info. Yeah, so we'll just call this info. But we're also doing info. Interesting. Okay. So we'll do info struct, and then we'll do status category. And we don't need the status, I don't think here. I'd rather just do okay, so we'll just do category. Yep, we'll do that. If the category, no, why is it doing this? I don't want that. Category is equal to, oops, again, here we go, programming. If the parameter is not equal to nil, we do that. Okay, we have a default sort of set there. We'll come back to this. Empty params category. That's just making sure it's not empty. Okay, so we'll do that. Then we're gonna need to actually do the call here. So we'll do URL, and then we'll do a sprint visual joke. That's not the sprint of official. Let's see here if we can find it. Joke stuff API dash joke. Joke %s category. Awesome. And then I'm also going to add a flag for safe, which I believe I can do. If I can do like safe mode. If I could do something like that. Let's see. And then we'll do response, or let's start this way. I like to start kind of backwards. HTTP dot get URL. It wants to help me out, but I don't want to listen. This returns a response and an error, so we'll do it that way. Stop helping me, cursor. Response error. Right. If error not equal to nil. Nil. I was recently having to work on some code that needed a bunch of try catches added to it, and it made me really appreciate the error not equal to nil. The error handling in Go, basically. It was great. Okay, response status code. Yeah, but okay, hold on. Woo. Let's give me everything here. So error not equal to nil, response body closed. The status code is not equal to an OK. Return an error message. And safe mode. I wonder if I have to add true to this. We'll try it without it and just see. And then we have a joke struct. Category. String. Backtick. Category. I want to work the typing a little bit. Type string. JSON type, sure. Format it for me. Set up delivery. Okay. We can do that. So we have a joke. We're going to decode that. Okay. We're going to decode that. Info struct category joke. So we need to add yes, essentially we need to add all of these. Type setup delivery. Type setup delivery. And then here we'll let it fill it in. Okay. Of course, when you want it to. Category. Type setup delivery. Boom. Thank you. We don't need that. That's gonna be category. Yeah, it's gonna be category because we're setting that. Okay, cool. Info, and then down here instead of data, it's gonna be info. Which I feel like maybe we can just call this data because that's what we did in the previous step, but everything here is using that info data. Oh, okay. Everything here is sort of using that data Marshall info, so we'll just follow that. Info data. Beautiful. Yeah, okay, cool. And I think this should work. See if we can do a curl call. We'll just add it down here to the bottom. just to make sure. Curl dash joke generator. Not what I want to do. Curl dash x get. Well, I want to do it with this. So yeah, there we go. Beautiful. Programming safe mode. Let's just double check that. Proxy get. Oop, what did I do wrong here? Let's see here. Error, false, type, boom, safe, true. Okay. Why do Python programmers wear glasses? Because they can't see. Awesome. Okay. So we can go ahead and remove that. We know our call is working. Okay. So I guess let's try and run this thing. Let me double check. Okay, I think we're okay. This one we have to do make a llama up. Run this, and now I'm not sure how this is going to react with this OSS model because I do have, I think, 36 gigabytes of RAM on my system, so I'm not sure how nice this is going to play with the stream. If it starts to lag really bad, I do have an idea of how we can just see the joke sort of API get hit, but let's see. It might take a little bit, so we'll try it. So it's make. Let me see if I can go back here. Step 1. Let's see if we could do step 2. Okay, so it's looking good so far. So we'll just warm it up and we'll do a hello, and we'll see a bunch of stuff populate here. Llama doing its thing, and let's see. It's going to take. It is okay. Yeah, it's definitely taking a little while. Hopefully nothing terribly bad happens here, but let's just wait. After this first response, I have noticed it gets a little faster, usually. So let's see. I definitely feel... There we go. We're getting a response now. And I'll put this up for you guys if you're curious. We have basically all of our memory being used right now. The Mac is sweating. Okay, I'm not sure if I lost you guys. I'm not sure if I lost you guys. Okay. Are you guys able to hear me now? Am I back? Okay, we're back. Okay. Yeah, so it definitely, I don't think I'm gonna be able to run it with the stream. Um, it is just too much memory. Um, but here we can kind of see a little bit of what it does, where it did like some reasoning and it says no tool needed. So the idea is that essentially my next question would be, hey, list the tools you have access to and see if it works. But I don't think I'm going to be able to do that live on stream, unfortunately. But I can do something else just so we can see this thing generate some jokes. I think I can do something else because this is very similar. That is unfortunate. That's a bummer. I really wanted to see that work. I can do this though. Let's just copy some things here. I think we can copy up to here, and we'll put it in step 1, just so we can at least like hit the API, MCP handler. So we can, yeah, we can sort of replace all of this. We'll do. We're setting the category already. So we'll do. We'll just do this. Joke info, and then now here we need to add that back in. Okay, cool. And I believe that's it. Data struct. Let's see if we can get this. I don't think I need a llama for this. So I got the tool joke generator, category programming, type single, but I did not get the setup or the delivery. What can we do here? Did not get the setup or the delivery. So let's do this. I don't need this. Joke %s. I will do params of arguments at category. We'll do the get for the close, and then we'll do a joke. A joke response. We want the category, we want the type, we want the setup, the delivery, but I'm missing a joke because that makes sense. I got a single back, so there was no setup and delivery. It was just a joke. Okay, that makes sense. Joke, rams, joke, and joke. Beautiful. So now we should see this. Delivery joke, algorithm. Algorithm, a word used by programmers when they don't want to explain how their code works. Nice. We'll hit another one. Debugging is like being the detective in a crime movie where you're also the murderer at the same time. Removing the needles from the haystack. So there we go. We're hitting the API. It's unfortunate that I couldn't show the actual MCP server working without the stream cutting off. That sucks. But essentially what would happen is we would basically get this sort of response in as a response from a tool, and the LLM would then process this and actually give it to us back, like in a more user-friendly way. It would say like, "Oh, the setup is this, and then the delivery is this," or it would give us the actual joke, and it would basically have that there. Um, cool. Well, I appreciate everybody for sticking around. Those of you that were watching. Um, this was my first time doing something like this solo, so you know, I'm pretty excited. I feel like, if you've never seen this stuff before, maybe you got something out of it. If you've already seen it, maybe it's a good little review or just seeing a different way of how this MCP stuff sort of works, and you can kind of see the power of it. Now knowing how the structure is, I could add tools a lot faster to this that do all kinds of cool things. Um, but we're gonna see if you guys have any suggestions on what maybe some things to work on for Tuesday and Thursday next week. Let me know. I'm I have some ideas in my head, but we'll see sort of as we get there how it turns out. So we're gonna end it a little bit early today, but I appreciate everybody for sticking around.